Palermo, the biggest city in Sicily. We arrived here by train and we continue our journey by ferry to Naples on the Italian mainland. You find several companies operating on this route, but we'll be traveling on board of a Grimaldi Lines ferry. And we actually booked one of the most fancy cabins you can find on board of this vessel. What it's like to travel on board of this ferry? Well, spoiler alert, I have very mixed feelings about it. So join us on board of this ferry from Palermo here in Sicily to Naples. A little bit more, but also quite in the south of Italy, but on the mainland. For now, let's set sail and let's roll the intro. We arrived in Palermo by train. At the moment we arrived here, we took a train from Pozzallo in the south of Sicily, where we arrived by ferry from Malta. Actually, we traveled to Malta by train and obviously ferry, and now we're traveling back homebound. On our way to, Malta and Sicily, we had a night train, a sleeper train from Milan to Catania, and now we're heading back by train and ferry. But when we were in Palermo, it was raining cats and dogs. Therefore we did something we actually never do. We took a hop-on hop-off bus, at least this way we could see something of the city without getting soaking wet ourselves, and have some kind of audio guide. But thank goodness we had some dry moments as well, so we could still enjoy the city a little bit. However, I think we'll be back around here because I felt like we haven't seen enough of Palermo. Quoted on the ticket there was a big address, and that was this address over here. Well, I knew this was not the terminal or whatever, so this was just the office, but I was a bit curious about it because it was straight next to the ferry terminal. And this is apparently a big office building where Grimaldi Lines is having their offices as well. It's next to the ferry terminal though, although I can imagine that some people might think that this is the point where they need to check in. Well, if you're here, it's not a big problem because you're pretty close to the ferry terminal. Right at the front of the offices, there are some bus stops as well, and I think this is basically a spot where the buses do park for the ferries. And I think some cruise vessels might use this terminal as well every now and then. Right in front of the ferry terminals, at the harbor basically, there's a big road. And before you can go to the harbor area, there's a first, very basic security area, where they basically see who people will go in, if they have a good reason to go in or not. Well, we just showed our ticket and asked if we were heading into the right direction, and everything was fine. If we moved on a little bit more, we got out at a roundabout, and at the roundabout there was a big interactive display that was mentioning what facilities can be found where, and also what way to go to for what ferry companies. The ferry company that we'll be traveling on today is Grimaldi Lines, and they do operate several ferry routes from and to here. Apart from that, Moby Lines and also GNV, what are two very big ferry companies as well, do operate their ferries from and to here as well. And on the exact route that we'll be taking today, you might find those ferries as well. The other serious competitor for passengers though is the train. However, the train is not super fast between Sicily and the mainland of Italy, simply because the train will also go on a ferry. Yeah, I do have a video on this as well, and if it's not there yet, just stay tuned on the Trainviking channel, but we arrived at one of those sleeper trains here. There is a walkway in the harbor for pedestrians, and this is protected, what is actually really nice because there are lots of big trucks moving around over here. Although, when I'm totally honest with you, I have to say that this is maybe the least fancy ferry terminal I experienced so far. I mainly traveled on ferries in Northern Europe, and I think this is in general a different experience because, the weather conditions are different. Although when we were here on a rainy day, I think a covered walkway, at least to stay dry, would have been very nice as well. But the weather is a little bit different here. I noticed this ticket office of Grimaldi Lines, so I just went in to ask if I was heading to the right direction. I guess so, because otherwise why would you have the ticket office over here? And it also mentioned check-in. So I just walked in here and they basically said like, no, I have to go on and walk to the gate number 1, or basically docking area number 1. So this is exactly what we did. Well, in terms of information I had so far for this journey, there was not anything quoting from what time we could check in on board of the vessel. This information was actually rather poor. There was something mentioning that you need to check in latest, I think an hour before departure, but well, always make it 2 at least. And for passengers traveling with their car it was a little bit more obviously. But that's basically it. I have to say the information in advance is relatively poor. Also, to what docking station I needed to go to, this was not very clear listed, to be honest. I mean, I like to look up these things, and I think I'm rather good at this, but I can imagine that if you are quite an unexperienced traveler, this might be kind of a hassle for you. Our ferry was departing from the far end of the harbor, and over here the walkway was not that good protected anymore for pedestrians. It was also less busy, thank goodness, and they were improving this as well. There was a construction work going on, so I think, well, in the not too far away future this will be improved. Anyway, we walked to the area where we could board our vessel, and as you can see, this part of the harbor, well, didn't look that great. Anyway, here she is, the Cruise Bonaria. What is our ferry for tonight? And here we can finally board. I thought at least. But they told me I have to go to another area next to the, well, car check-in, where the passengers can do the check-in process. What makes sense really. I can expect a kind of a nice building with a waiting area, etc. if you cannot board yet. So we went there. And well, at first I couldn't really believe where it was, but apparently it's here on the left. This can't be a true entrance, there's a chair standing in the way and this is flooded with water. I know we had some heavy rain, but this can't be an entrance. And what turns out, it is the entrance, and this here is the waiting area. We couldn't board yet. Well, there are some benches, some litter bins and some vending machines where you can buy snacks and drinks, and if it's raining, a lot of water inside as well. Okay, I have to admit to that, the amount of rain we had was quite insane. And there are toilets as well. Let's review them, and for this I will just show you and won't talk for this. Well, maybe the other toilet is better. Let's have a look. Well, the only thing I can say about this, it smelled the way like it looked. Anyway, while we were waiting, there were some school groups coming on board of the vessel as well, and they could board straight away. What makes sense really, because they are a group, at least in my opinion. And the people who marked us present, we didn't have our room key yet by the way, they mentioned that at the moment we can go on board, they will call us. But nothing happened. Until my better half asked if we can also go on board. Oh yeah, they forgot to tell us. Well, we haven't got our room key yet. And well, just see how it goes. Anyway, this here, we can board our vessel. And as you can see here on the left, you have the car deck. And there's a special area for passengers disembarkation or embarkation. My ticket was basically already checked before we came on to the waiting area. But here they did it again. Although they didn't check with my travel documents this time. And here we can board our vessel. There's an escalator over here. I actually haven't had any ferry so far where you will find escalators on board of the ferry. This is quite fancy, to be honest. And the infinity mirror effect. I just really like that. Anyway, straight after we got out at this area here, what is the reception or front desk. I noticed, by the way, quite a lot of staff wearing these green vests on board of the vessel to help passengers around. But we haven't got our room key yet, so I assume I have to go to the reception to ask for our room key. And even though we were the first food passengers on board of this vessel to be checked in, We had to wait in line because they forgot to tell us we could walk on to get our room key. When we asked for the check-in, we got one key, while we were traveling with 2 people, and later on my better half also got her key after we asked for it. I hope you can imagine that so far at least my experience with Grimaldi Line isn't that impressive, and honestly for this entire check-in process, if there would be just one barrier cord, these things here that don't cost that much, someone needs to open, then it's clear that there's also information for passengers waiting that you can go on board. Honestly, this little thing would have made such a big difference in the entire experience. And also the website of Grimaldi Lines and general information before departure can definitely be better. Because of our heavier luggage, we took the elevator to our deck. Before I show you the vessel and our cabin, of course. I hope you like this video so far. If you do so, or if it's a helpful video to you, please give me a thumbs up. I really appreciate that. If you have questions, feedback, comments, even if you just want to say hello, feel free to leave a comment. And if you like to see more trip reports of more sustainable ways of transportation, the main focus for this channel is long distance and or international traveling. Well, this is definitely long distance. And about sustainability, I honestly don't know, but if you count that this vessel is mainly meant for freight and will take passengers as well, then some calculations say that the ferries are very sustainable, others are not, but a ferry is definitely more sustainable than a cruise holiday, and these things should not be compared as one. For now, let's continue with this video. Like always in ferries, if you book a cabin at least, you get a room card with a cabin number on it. Normally, if you see many of my previous videos, we don't book the most fancy cabins because, save some money, you can travel more for that same reason. And besides that, I want to make this YouTube channel at least pay for itself. But for this, it's not a YouTube related video, it's just our holiday where I also shoot some videos. We booked the most fancy cabin possible because, well, we have something to celebrate. Anyway, our room is 7092. It's mentioned as Lux, so it's a 7th deck room 92. And you can see what kind of cabins there are on the door. So this is an AB cabin, so it's an inside cabin for 4 people. What is actually quite a good cabin as well. I've saw the pictures of it. But we decided to go fancy on this. So let me show you around. Here we are. And this space is huge. It's a bit outdated, I know, but it's quite fancy. If I move here to the right, I park my fiancée. And maybe some more.
Someone?
Someone else, maybe. And if we go over here, let's do a bathroom tour. Let's start off with that straight away. I mean, the bathroom is slightly bigger than what I experienced in other ferries. But it's okay, it's not extremely big. It's nice, it's clean, that's most important. And in general, my experience is, if you travel on board of ferries, is that the water pressure in the showers is pretty good. We'll find out later.
Hello.
Hello. Oh, let's do the same trick as in many other videos. The shower is indeed really good. You find a hairdryer as well. I don't need that. Some soap, some... What is also someone else need a shower, need a hairdryer, of course, some shampoo. I think they can reduce a little bit of plastic when it comes to this, but well, it's all here. And then you find a lot of cabinets. I mean, it's not that we will be on this ferry for ages, but there are a lot of cabinets. This here is our bed. There's a TV as well. We can adjust the TV a little bit towards the seating area or towards the bed area, I think. Yeah, like this. Well, I'm not going to be on this ferry to watch television, so let me put it back. It's a bit hard. Yeah, so let me put it back. There's a small desk as well with a power socket over here. What did you say?
You can walk from here.
I can work from here, yes, absolutely. I mean, it's not that we are on this ferry for ages, and I just think like, if they're gonna clean, they need to check everything. It's quite a big task, to be honest. Over here is the bed, and over here there's more cabinet space. We'll find the life jackets as well over here at the bottom. So right over here. I mean, if you have really a longer journey on board of this ferry, this is really suitable. Find 2 windows, one over here and one over here. These luxury cabinets are all outside cabinets, by the way. And there's a phone, well, I don't know who you should call aboard, but the reception maybe. What I noticed is that quite a lot of information is also in Greek. So as you can see here, I can't really read Greek. Can read the Cyrillic alphabet though, but not the Greek one. No, it's not here because it's also in English. Or Italian. Let me see, what is it? Italian? Well, reception is obviously English, and this here is all in Greek. We'll find out that and maybe write it in the screen right now. A big mirror here as well, and the bed itself, I haven't tested it fully out. Feels quite okay, to be honest. Power socket right next to the bed. I mean, it's not the most modern cabin you can find, but it's quite good. There's air conditioning as well over here, and if you turn this from here, you can close it or open it. You cannot really control the temperature as far as I know. Okay, we found out that there was an announcement that the shops are open. We'll find that later. I'll show you as much as possible in this video, of course, like I always do. The curtains here, they're a little bit broken. I mean, if I want to... But what we noticed when we came in, the curtains were closed. But they really do block out quite some light, actually. It's quite I think it looks better if you put it a little bit like this. But they really block out quite some light. Well, there's a little stripe over there. Tomorrow morning, we arrive relatively early in Naples. The times of the sailing are different every time, so just check out the Grimaldi website for that. But we will arrive at 7 o'clock. I don't know if we can stay a little bit longer in the bed or if we need to go out at 6 to shower and everything. We find out tomorrow morning. We have a train at 9:15 to Milan tomorrow. There will be a video about that as well. But for now, let's continue discovering this vessel. Well, something I haven't mentioned, we have a fridge as well. It's not very big and it's not being filled like a minibar or so, but it's there. It's nice for the warm days. And at the entrance doors of the compartments you find some basic safety information. And at last, there are some extra amenities in the bathroom as well that I didn't show you earlier on. To be honest, it feels a bit like waste of plastic. Oh, and you cannot drink the tap water on board of this ferry. And if I may believe this sign, everything you dump in the toilet will be going straight to the ocean. Can't really believe that. I think there should be at least some kind of filter. Now let's discover the vessel. We were staying at deck 7, and at deck 7 you find mainly cabins. However, at deck 6 you find most public facilities, but for this video I think it's easiest if I move from top to down levels. At deck 9 there is a bar, but that was closed during our trip, so I will go to deck 8 straight away. You find quite a lot of staircases on board of this vessel, by the way. And apart from that, there are lots of these very clear screens where you are, and directions have been marked crystal clear on board of this vessel. At deck 8 you won't find cabins though, however you do find quite a lot of seats. You can also stay on board of this ferries if you just book a seat. And well, even you don't have to book anything, you can also stay in the public areas. If you're traveling at daytime, I think that's fine, but if you make this crossing at night, I personally wouldn't choose for that. And these are, as they call it, the business class seats. You have more legroom compared to the other seats. However, the other seats, I like them a little bit more, and I'll show you why later on in the video. For the seats, you'll find, well, really a generous amount of legroom over here. And these seats can be reclined as well, although it's not that impressive. For luggage, there's a special luggage rack near the seating areas. Our personal conclusion is that this is not how we'd like to travel on board of this vessel, like this. And if I will be a little bit more at the back, you find 3 seats right next to each other. I wouldn't have the middle seat there either. But this is something you will not find a lot within these business class seats, and you will find a lot within the regular Pullman seats. I'll show them in a bit. Pretty close to all the seating areas there are public toilets as well. These toilets were pretty clean during my crossing at least. I noticed that the toilets at deck 6 where you find the public spaces are a bit nicer in general, a bit more modern, but these toilets were also still pretty fine. I even noticed, not only here but at another spot in the ferry as well, that the disabled toilet even had a shower. Then at deck 8 you also find these seats here, and you find a lot of these seats, also at deck 7. I think most of the capacity on board of this vessel is actually in these seats. And even though we had some people on board of this crossing that were staying here, most people were sleeping in the cabins. And I even noticed some people that were just camping on board of this ferry. Well, they didn't book any accommodation, but I really recommend you to book at least a seat like this. It's not expensive at all if you do this, and I noticed ticket prices for around €30 per person. This ferry operates both on night and day crossings, and if you have a day crossing, I think this is totally fine. I don't like these seats here, by the way, because the armrests cannot be adjusted, and for some other seats you can adjust the armrest as well, and if you have 3 seats in a row and they're all free, you can basically lay flat, what is ideal. I mean, it's still definitely not my preferred way how I like to travel, but really the highest capacity on board of this ferry can be found in these kind of seats. Then at the back of deck number 8 you will find the helicopter deck. This is really nothing special actually. It's basically a big outside area. Maybe it's nicer if it's sunny or so, but well, for this crossing I just walked here to film this and that's basically it. Then, apart from the many chairs you'll find in deck 8, you also find the pool area, including a pool bar, where the music was going out strong, but I can't let you hear that because otherwise this video gets demonetized pretty soon after I publish it. There are quite some seats over here and you find the pool. Actually, I was really excited to try out the pool, but there's no water here. Yeah, quite disappointing to be honest, because I really planned to go in here. I've never been on a ferry where we have a pool where you can really swim. Apart from the pool, this is also a kind of the sun deck area, and there is a smaller pool a little bit more at the side. It's nice that it's there, and I think in the high summer season this might be used a bit more often. We were traveling mid-May for this journey. And because of the heavy rain we had earlier that day, this place also looked a little bit sad, to be honest. I also noticed this sign, Dogs Village. I didn't know exactly what it was, but apparently there are some dogs who have a settlement on board of this ferry. At deck number 7 you find mainly cabins and also some seats, but there are no public facilities at deck number 7. Our cabin was also here. Then deck number 6. Here you will find most public facilities. You find lots of restaurants, shops, you name it. There's a kind of shopping area. Instead of having one big shop, they have several smaller shops, including a shop where you can buy some merch of Grimaldi Lines. Well, I haven't traveled with Grimaldi Lines before. I traveled on Fin Lines before, what is a subsidiary of Grimaldi Lines. Well, this is my first Grimaldi Lines experience. It's not the same stuff as you can expect in tax-free shops, because we are still traveling on a domestic ferry after all. There should also be something like an arcade room or so, but that was closed during our crossing. At the very front of the vessel you'll find the Eliseo show lounge. I think there might be shows here every now and then, but this wasn't the case for our crossing. But this is totally at the front of the vessel. It's quite nice, and at the total front of this area you will find the so-called VIP lounge. Well, to be honest, I went there because it was open anyway, but it was not very different from the seats you could see over here. However, what I did notice that this was a special wheelchair area. Yeah, of course, these are the things where you don't think about normally, but wheelchairs need to be locked, especially if you are on a rough sea. The VIP lounge at the total front over here it's not that special. Maybe there is some extra service for some occasions, or maybe for more privacy for, well, more famous people. But no, since we could have gone here anyway, I just went in here and this is how it looks like. Nothing really special, to be honest, compared to the rest. There's even a special area where there, well, for potential shows, can be a technician to do the lights, those kind of things. But once again, this wasn't happening during our crossing. And obviously there's also a bar over here, but I didn't put that well on camera. At the middle of the vessel at deck number 6 you will find the so-called Bar Centrale. This is a bar, well, it's all in the name, and as far as I noticed this is open 24/7. There's also a piano over here, and a little bit more at the side from this bar you'll find a special kids area. However, as a soon-to-be father, I honestly think that the kids area is not that big and can be maybe a little bit bigger and less plastic stuff. At the back of deck 6 you will find 2 restaurants. One is a buffet style restaurant and the other one is an a la carte restaurant where you will be served at your seat. There were quite some long queues, as you can see here, with all these school groups using the buffet style restaurant, and this here was the other restaurant. That looks actually way nicer, but we decided to go to the buffet style restaurant for this time. And there is a reasonable selection of food available over here. In the morning I also went here for breakfast, but somehow Italian style breakfast is not really for me. But of course I needed something in my stomach, so yeah, this is why I went for breakfast over there. Also at the sides and the middle of deck 7 you find some outside areas. This is perfect, there are quite some scenic areas where you pass through on this route actually. Both in Sicily and also near Naples. Of course, if you're in the middle of the sea it's just water though. Now let's go one deck lower to deck number 5, and this is also where we came on board of this vessel. And at deck number 5 you will find the reception and also the escalators that go down to the passenger embarkation or disembarkation area. There's a kind of central square because this is basically where you enter the vessel from. And what I also noticed, not only here but also at some railway stations in Italy, is that there are quite a lot of ads of Grimaldi Lines and Trenitalia, so it seems like they work together on quite some fields. And Trenitalia is the state-owned railway company of Italy. When we were traveling aboard of this ferry, we also had Interrail discount. You don't need to activate a travel day, but you need to have an active Interrail pass though. For the rest, at deck 5 you will only find cabins basically. And there was also something called infirmary, but that was closed. These here were some of the fancier outside cabins like we had as well. And on the other side you'll find the inside cabins with 4 beds or 2 beds. Well, the next morning I sneaked in one of the inside cabins and this is how they are. You also find versions of these cabins with an outside window. And these cabins do have their own ensuite shower and toilet as well. About our night on board of the ferry. The bed was quite good to be honest, and when we started sleeping everything was okay actually. However, the announcements on board of this ferry for breakfast and everything start quite early. They just want to make sure that at the moment the ferry arrives everybody is awake. And another thing that actually really bothered me, from quite early in the morning there was a kind of strange shaking on board of this ferry. Well, that's obviously the engine, that's no doubt about that. But it was a kind of annoying and not really with a soft rhythm anymore. I mean, I've been on many ferries before. As I counted up, I think 15 or 16 overnight ferries, maybe even more because some routes I travel pretty often, like the Harwich Hook of Holland. But I never experienced something like this. Do you know where this kind of strange shaking comes from? I found out later that this is a high-speed ferry and it has a single hull. So maybe this might have to do something with that. If you know this, please let me know in the comments. At the moment I went for breakfast in the early morning to the buffet style restaurant, I also took a shot of the trays, and the trays are being held by something, well, some feathers, that keeps it nice and balanced. I mean, it also needs to function on open sea. And as you can see over here, it was really shaky. even though this is being balanced out in a certain way. Personally, I don't think that I'm an unexperienced ferry traveler. Although I do have to add up to this, that most of my ferry trips were on the Baltic Sea, the North Sea and parts of the Atlantic Ocean, so maybe that's all a little bit different from this part of Europe. But I've been on many ferries before, 15 or 16 overnight ferries and many daytime ferries, and I haven't experienced this kind of shaking before. The disembarkation process at the harbor of Naples is pretty similar to the embarkation process we had at the harbor of Palermo. I also noticed this sign about luggage size. To be honest, I don't think there's a true luggage restriction on board of these ferries as long as you can carry it, and especially if you stay within the cabins. For the school groups, there seemed to be some buses arranged, and we walked outside of the harbor to the metro station, what is not too far away. Just like in the harbor of Palermo, you find a special walkway over here, and this one seems to be a little bit better protected. The one in Palermo was good protected as well, but not everywhere. This harbor also seems smaller than the harbor in Palermo. There is a bus stop as well, and right in front of the harbor there's a big and busy road where there's also a tram line. I didn't notice a tram stop nearby though, but once again we walked to the metro station, what is about 5 to 10 minutes from here. This metro station is also easy accessible. There is an elevator, what made it quite easy for us to go down as well with quite some luggage. I also have to say that my general experience is that I feel like they changed something in the positive side on the Naples metro. The last time I visited Naples was about 3.5 years ago. The metro stop near Napoli Centrale, so the main railway station of Naples, is Garibaldi, because there's another station pretty close to that that's called Garibaldi. I'll explain more to that on the Naples station video where I review the Naples station. I will do this again this time, but because I took a Frecciarossa for this specific route from Naples to Milan, and I just published another video with a Frecciarossa train, I might wait a little bit before I publish that specific video. Anyway, while I show you some shots of our route to the central station, my final conclusion about this ferry trip, because I do have very mixed feelings about it. Did I like it? Yes. Would I travel again with Grimaldi Lines on this specific route with this specific ferry? No. And the reason why is simple. The whole shaking, the check-in process, the bad website, etc. made me actually want to travel with the other companies. You find 2 other companies running on exactly the same route. The other companies, or Moby Lines by the way, that's using the name Tyrrhenia, what I think is also a subsidiary of Moby Lines, and GNV. What I saw on one trip report of someone else who was traveling on board of this route with a GNV ferry in one of the most venture cabins is that you can also stay longer in the cabin while the ferry is in the harbor. Also, the schedule for Grimaldi Lines is not very fixed. Sometimes these ferries travel between Palermo and Naples at daytime, and then they swap the schedule and then it's a night ferry. The week before we made this journey, the Palermo to Naples route with Grimaldi Lines was always at daytime. The prices though for the Grimaldi Line ferries are really affordable, and especially if you book the seats. You can make a crossing for around €30, where we paid with Interrail discounts, and obviously we had the most fancy cabin and everything, so it's not really comparable, but we paid around €175. So let's say a little more than €87 per person. What is still okay though, I mean you travel and sleep at the same time, and therefore these ferries are pretty time efficient as well. You find ferries to many other Italian towns from Palermo. However, I feel like the Palermo-Naples route is most competitive with all the other modes of transportation, because it's on an efficient schedule and you sleep and travel at the same time, so you basically don't lose a lot of time. Basically, we had a full day in Palermo, and if we want to spend some time here in Naples, we have a full day here in Naples as well. And even then, we take a high-speed train to Milan, so we arrive quite early in the afternoon still in Milan, so we have some time to kill over there as well. But my advice to travel with Grimaldi Lines on this specific ferry that we had on this specific route is for now no, until I tested out the other ferries on the same route. And you do find quite some sleeper trains from and to Sicily as well. On the way to Sicily, we took a sleeper train from Milan. Just stay tuned for that specific trip report. Here we are in Napoli Centrale railway station, where we arrived by ferry and the metro from near the ferry terminal. I have mixed feelings about this ferry journey, to be honest. I already probably told you in this video. Anyway, that's it for this video. I hope you like this, or this has been helpful to you. So please give me a thumbs up, I really appreciate that. If you have questions, feedback, comments, even if you just want to say hello, once again, feel free to leave a comment. And if you like to see more trip reports or more sustainable ways of transportation, the main focus for this channel is once again long distance and or international traveling, then hit that subscribe button if you haven't done this already. Before we really end up this video, one last thing. Thank you for watching. If you are interested in other videos, in the description of this video you find a link to a map where you can find all videos as well, but then on a map. I also started a new channel where I film the views from the train for entire routes. You can find a link to that channel in the description of this video as well. See you on the next video.